In this video lesson, I am going to explain for loops. Consider the following program. If I execute this program, it will output on the screen 5 hellos. In order to output 5 hellos like this, using 5 println statements, it's not an issue. However, if I ask you to output 200 hellos, then we will have to write or copy and paste a lot of code. And obviously, that might become untenable. So it makes sense to make use of a for loop. As I have already explained in my previous video, for loops are used when we want to repeat some code for an amount of times that we know the amount before we start the loop. So, for example, in this case, we can write only one println hello and write a for loop so that we will tell Java to execute that line of code for 5 times. I am first going to write the code that will repeat this line of code for 5 times, and then I will explain it afterwards. So to do this, all we have to do is write for int I equals 1, I less than or equal to 5, I plus plus, and we encapsulate the println preferably curly brackets. If we just run this file, this program actually, it will output 5 hellos. Now what I suggest is this. I suggest that you pause this video and copy this code so that while I will be explaining the meaning of the for loop, you will be able to experiment and play around with the for loop. I am now going to explain this for loop. I hope that you have copied this code so that you will be able to experiment with me. When we are repeating some code for a predefined amount of times, we are making Java count numbers representing the amount of time. So in this case, we are making Java to count from 1 to 5 because we want to repeat that line of code for 5 times. And then, each time that it is counting, Java will execute the code that there is within the scope of the for loop. In this case, this system.out.println hello. Now to explain the meaning of this part of the for loop, as you can note, it is made up of 3 different parts. The first part is what we call the counter, initialization, and declaration. So we are declaring a counter that Java is going to use to count the numbers, and we are initializing it from 1. By initializing it from 1, I mean that it is going to start counting from 1. The second part, I less than or equal to 5, is the looping condition. In this part of the loop, we are telling Java that we would like this loop to continue repeating itself while I is less than or equal to 5. This means that I will count from 1 up to 5. The last part, I++, is called the incrementation method. Incrementation method refers to by how much we are going to increment I to count the next number. In this case, I++, we are telling it to always count by 1. So from 1, we add 1 to make it 2. From 2, we add 1 to make it 3. From 3, we add 1 to make it 4. And from 4, we add 1 to make it 5. I, it's just a variable name. So you can name it any name. You can give it any name. However, usually, when we have only one for loop, we use the variable name I because I is a one letter word, and I usually stands for integer. That is why we use I. In the next video, I am going to experiment a little bit with this for loop and do some things with this I.